don't mean to sound like a broken record when I say this, but once again, for the umpteenth time this season so far, this is already the best race of the season, top to bottom. This race was just pure insanity every way you look at it. We broke track records for ET records in pro stock. We broke the speed record, I don't know how many times. I want to say 4 or 5 times at least, just in Saturday and Sunday alone. You want to talk about upsets? We had major upsets all weekend long. You want to talk about explosions? We had explosions throughout qualifying. We had a crash on race day. We had a major crowd all weekend long. We were playing with lobsters. I don't know what else you could want from a race weekend. It was exciting. It was fun. It was exhilarating. It was fast. It was everything you could have asked for from an NHRA national event. And it just lived up to expectations. I mean, you look in the top fuel ranks just to start off. Brittany Force, what else can you say about her? Goes into the weekend, was having the pace. She was the first person to break 340 miles an hour on a top fuel dragster. Was unable to capitalize that into a win at the Charlotte 4-wide and didn't seem to have the pace in Chicago. Comes into this weekend, qualifies in a pretty decent position and maneuvers her way through the field into a position to win this race. In the semifinals, turns every single hand on the property. She came close to bringing 340 miles an hour in the opening rounds of eliminations. And then when she got into the semifinals, she really broke it at 341 miles an hour. The second fastest run in the history of NHRA to 1,000 feet. She was the second person to ever do it. She's the first person to repeatedly do it. And then she took it one step further and ran 340 miles an hour in a final round to win the national event, which is just everything you could have asked for. I look at this race as her statement win, cementing herself in this championship fight. I know it's only one race, while the likes of Doug Coletta and Tony Stewart would have won multiple races already. But this was a statement win. To dominate the race like the way she did, to have the incredible performance she did all weekend long, to consistently not just have the ability to break 340 miles an hour, but to consistently do it in a race scenario is absolutely incredible. Austin Prock did it at Pomona. He didn't think he was going to do it. Brittany Force and David Grubnick knew they could do it, and that's the real difference in those two runs. And another thing to note as well, in the history of NHRA, I know Bob Task III, he will go down in history as the first person to ever break 340 miles an hour in Nitro racing to 1,000 feet. But he did that at the Puro Shootout. It's not going to go in the NHRA records. And he admitted that at the top end when he did that he wanted to do that for the NHRA records. He's been unable to do it yet. The only people in the history of NHRA to reach 340 miles an hour and 1,000 feet is Austin Prock and Brittany Force, the two cars out of the JFR camp. The Cornwell Tools Chevrolet funny car. And the Monster Energy Hendrick cars, how many ever sponsored on that car? Chevrolet Top Fuel Dragster. That is incredible. This team is far and above. They've proven year in and year out why they are the top team in NHRA, why they are the gold standard, why they are the Team Penske and the Hendrick Motorsports of the NHRA. For a good reason. When these teams have their back against the wall, they dig down deep and they find the pace and they show everybody who they are, why they are, how they got there, and why they continue to be there. So this is just absolutely incredible. No matter where you look at it, this is a statement win for Brittany Force. And they're going to continue to go in these summer months. We know how good David Grubnick is. We know how good Brittany Force is. We know how good this team is. And now we're going to go into tracks like Bristol, Virginia, Norwalk. You're going to head into the semi-western swing, Seattle and Sonoma. These are all tracks that Brittany Force is really, really good at. And with how hot this track is going to continue to get, with the fact that they've been able to take the canard wings off these cars, and that's another thing I want to say, it is still a continuous race-to-race basis. There's no real cemented rule yet on whether or not the canard wings are going to stay on the cars or they're going to stay off the cars. My honest opinion, keep those things off the cars. At least give them the option to do it. I'd rather have that. Give them the option to run if they want, but give them the option to take it off because it has made this a lot more exciting. It has opened the door to allow us to run at 340 miles an hour in a top fuel dragster, which is just as insane. And now Brittany Force has unlocked another level of performance out of this race car from her and her team. I don't want to see a canard wing put back on that dragster because now we know just how fast these things can go, and it's going to be absolutely phenomenal as we head into the winter months when we get into the real countdown era of the NHRA schedule and we start heading to these really, really fast tracks, like we know how good Las Vegas is when it gets cold outside. We know how good Dallas is when it gets cold outside. We know how good Pomona is when it's cold outside. We saw that last year with Austin Prock. This is going to get real exciting real fast. So the NHRA, if anybody actually watches these videos, if anybody that writes the rule books is watching these videos, keep the canard wings off these cars. At least, I gotta keep saying this, give them the option to keep them off the car because I don't want to see them. I talked to one driver who was at Chicago. He told me they were actually had the side panels ordered to take the canard wings off. They didn't show up in time. So there are other teams that are starting to look at this. Even the part-time teams are looking at this. This is going to get insanely exciting. I cannot wait to see the direction this is going to go. I hope this rule stays permanent. I love this Euro War. I love this option. I love this newfound layer of intrigue that goes into qualifying and race day for the setups. It's something visually that we're going to look at. It's something fun. It's something cool. Keep the rule as it is. Funny car. Austin Prock, a massive upset in round number 1. Loses his round 1 matchup. I said this on Twitter. I said this last night. Austin Prock was far and away the favorite driver heading into race day. He had the car to beat. He was 300s ahead of second place. He had the field covered. But what I did say on top of that, the only thing that's going to get in his way is the issues that we saw in that car throughout qualifying in the heat of the day in Q number 3, where he spun the tires early in the run, had to shut it off. We saw that in round number 1. Smoked the tires off the starting line, was very frustrated at the top end when he got out of that race car. And what I said after that moment, the field is being put on notice right now because we had a similar situation back at Brainerd last year when he lost to J.R. Todd in round number 2. Was very frustrated when he got out of that race car. The next race was Indy, then he went straight into the countdown. That unlocked a fire within Austin Prock, and he went on a tear. He went on a rampage. The rest of the season, dominated the countdown and won the championship. Now we're this early in the season. He's in a similar scenario. We're going to be heading into Bristol, a track where he really started that reign of terror throughout 2025 in the regular season. Now he is determined. He has a chip on his shoulder. He is frustrated. He wants to see what this car can do. And he's going to a racetrack where he has been so fast in the past. And we know how good Jimmy Prock is. We know how good Thomas Prock is. We know how good everybody on that Cornwell Chevrolet funny car is. He's going to be going to a track where we know he's going to be able to win. He beat J.R. Todd in that final round in Bristol, the guy who won today in funny car. That's going to be another layer to watch as we head into Bristol as well, whether or not J.R. Todd can keep the ball rolling that we saw from him today in Epping. But right now, Austin Prock is going to be my guy to follow as we head into Bristol, because if history repeats itself, this is going to be a very boring funny car championship as we head into the countdown, because Austin Prock is about to go swinging for the fences, and he has a Louisville Slugger that weighs a ton hanging over his shoulder. In Pro Stock, this was the return for them after the month break they took after Charlotte. The big question was whether or not Elite Motorsports was going to be able to turn that corner and get the performance back in their power to go out there and compete with the KB Titan cars. KB Titan still has a bit of an advantage, but there was a big swing in the right direction for the Elite Camps. They had a really good weekend, the best they've had so far all season long. Now, instead of being about a 10th off, they're only 300ths off. And in a class that's as tight as this, where it does come down to those thousandths of a second, but especially those hundredths of a second, KB Titan still has their number, especially the top 2 guys of Dallas Glenn and Greg Anderson. Had the field covered. They looked really strong all weekend long. They started to dwindle as they went down there, but right now the Elite Motorsports cars have now nestled their way back into that mid-pack of those KB Titan cars, where they're contending with the likes of, Derek Kramer, the Latinos, now Dave Connolly, who is subbing for Eric Latino. There's still a question on what the situation is going to be with him as we head into the summer months. We know he's going to be out for Bristol. It's still up in the air about Virginia and Norwalk, but he is supposedly coming back by the end of the month. So it's still a question whether it's going to be Virginia, whether it's going to be Norwalk, and we're going to see him back in time for Seattle. So that's going to be a story to follow on Pro Stock as well. But they are going to have, I believe, Bristol. No, they're going to have Virginia off. So they'll be in Bristol and they'll be off in Virginia. I get confused. I don't know why we're not running the full season with them. But still, step in the right direction for the Elite Camp. They had a really good weekend so far. Had 2 cars in the semifinals. Had 1 car in the final round. Came up just short. But a huge step in the right direction as they had multiple cars sitting in the top half. And now as we head closer to the championship threat of the countdown to the championship, now they're really going to have an opportunity to go out there and run for this championship. And looking at the ladder from today's New England Nationals for Pro Stock, you're going to see it in round number 1. Brandon Miller loses to Cody Coughlin in the first round. Cody, coming in number 1 qualifier, had a really good weekend in qualifying. It was a big question on whether or not he's going to be able to keep the momentum rolling. Barely ekes out a win over Brandon Miller. We almost had a dodge dart win. I can't remember the last time that's ever happened, but he falls short. Cody Coughlin moves on to round number 2. Not too many upsets as you look throughout the ladder in round number 1. In a very, very topsy-turvy round of eliminations in Nitro, it was pretty standard in Pro Stock. Aaron Stanfield's really the only big upset. Number 9 qualifier defeating number 8. Aaron Stanfield defeats Chris McGahey, moves on to the semifinals. Cody Coughlin, the nerves got to him. It was a question of whether or not how long this is going to last. Same scenario as Matt Latino, loses in round number 2. Aaron Stanfield makes it to the semifinals. Eric Enders, her best weekend so far, has struggled all season long. I believe this is her first, no, she made it out of the first round in Chicago, but regardless, or no, she made it out of the first round in Charlotte. So this is a step in the right direction for her. Defeated Derek Kramer round number 1. Defeated Corey Reed round number 2. Defeated her teammate Aaron Stanfield. Squared tires around number 3. Erica pedaled her way to a final round appearance to face off against none other than Greg Anderson. We talked about all season long. It's been the Greg and Dallas show. The first time all season that those two are not able to be in the finals. And we're back to the old tried and true of Greg versus Erica. Greg Anderson defeating Kenny Delco in round number 1. Dave Connolly in round number 2. And Matt Hartford, who had a surprising appearance in the semifinal rounds due to Dallas Glenn red lighting 12 thousandths of a second to a Matt Hartford who squared the tires off the starting line. Dallas Glenn giving away an easy round victory to fall out for the first time to fail to make semifinals. Greg Anderson advanced to the final round to face off against Erica Enders. Erica squares the tires early in the run. Greg Anderson runs down the racetrack to take another national event win and extend his championship points lead. In Fuel Funny Car, like I said, Austin Prock, the big story, losing round number 1, spinning the tires on the starting line, very frustrated with himself. He's going to have a major chip on his shoulder heading into Bristol. He's going to be swinging for the fences. He's going to be the guy to watch. Buddy Hull, a really big congratulations to him and the entire Jim Dunn Racing team. A massive round win for them. I believe it's the second time. Yes, they won back at Gainesville. This is a huge step in the right direction for them. I know this is kind of a mulligan win for them, but a huge congratulations to them to get the round win. That chaos will continue because if you look on the other side of the ladder, Phil Burkhardt running a local team's funny car, defeating the hometown driver of Bob Taskett III. From what I remember hearing, this is the first time Phil Burkhardt has won a first round win since 2009. It has been a long time for Phil Burkhardt taking out Bob Taskett III. Looking to the rest of the ladder, Daniel Wilkerson had the win from Jack Beckman, but he gets down to half track. The car starts to spin. He starts heading straight for the start line, lifts off the car. Jack Beckman coasts it along the wall to take the round win and move on to round number 2. The other big upsets as well, not really an upset. Spencer Hyde, number 8 qualifier, takes out Matt Hagan, number 9 qualifier. On the other side of the ladder as well, Ron Capps, number 11 qualifier, not a good weekend for him. Loses to Lux DeJoria, who had an incredible weekend for herself, winning round number 1 against Ron Capps, winning round number 2 against Paul Lee, and advancing all the way to semifinals to face off against J.R. Todd in a head-to-head race. It would come down to J.R. Todd eking out the win against Alex DeJoria. They face off against Spencer Hyde, who had a scary moment in his semifinal matchup against Jack Beckman. Jack Beckman launches up the starting line. The car immediately goes into a spin, sitting sideways across the racetrack, crosses the center line right as Spencer Hyde is passing him. He is lucky to escape without a scratch, but Jack Beckman, on the other hand, crosses the center line, smacks it into the left lane wall head first, and comes to a stop with the wheel breaking off the rear tire. Jack Beckman, in pure John Force fashion, gets out of the car, stands on the roof, gives the waves to the crowd in vintage John Force style. You want to talk about a guy perfect enough to be driving the John Force car? He is the perfect replacement for the brute and the king and the goat that is John Force. Chassis is destroyed. They've already said they're bringing out the car from last season. Jack Beckman will be in the backup car heading into Bristol. In the final round, be Spencer Hyde versus J.R. Todd. Spencer Hyde would spin the tires midway down the racetrack. J.R. Todd on the weekend where Coletta Motorsports celebrates the life of Scott Coletta with his name on the side of the car. J.R. Todd captures his first win since the 2024 Gator Nationals at the start of the season 1 year ago. And in Top Fuel, the big story again, Brittany Force, number 5 qualifier, entering race day, faces off against Clay Milliken, defeats him, defeats Sean Reed, heads off against the number 1 qualifier, Doug Collette, who had a bye run in round number 1, defeated Ida Zetterstrom, who was not supposed to be here on race day this weekend, found last-minute sponsorship to make the trip up to New Hampshire, defeat Steve Torrance, a really good run for her in a race that she was not supposed to be at. They're going to be leaving with their heads held high heading into Bristol now that they have a really good setup as they get ready for the Thunder Valley Nationals, but falls short to Doug Coletta. Doug Coletta moves back to the semifinals back-to-back after number one qualifiers as well back at Chicago. Everything's looking the same way. Number one qualifier in Chicago, Mission Foods Too Fast, Too Tasty Challenge win in Chicago, does the same thing here, breaks the track record twice, and then falls to Brittany Force, who has to break another track record at the speed record for that track, 341.42 miles an hour to break the record to advance to the final round against Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart defeating Rick Pustari in round number one, defeating Justin Nash in the rematch of the Chicago final round from two weeks ago to advance to the semifinals. They face like Antron Brown to take out Dan Mercier. A huge shout out to the Dan Mercier camp. This is a hometown race for them because it's the closest race they have north of the border to their home in Montreal. He falls short to Antron Brown. Tony Stewart versus another thing to point out as well, Antron blew the motor in the semifinal matchup as well, so an expensive weekend for him. Tony Stewart defeats Antron Brown to make it to the finals against Brittany Force. Tony Stewart leaves first with a 49 lights, but Brittany Force, another 340 mile an hour run in her back pocket, ekes out the win, her first win of the season. Tony Stewart, however, again, has yet to fail to make it out of the first round all season long. 5 final round appearances and just came short of getting his third win this season. But Brittany Force, first win of the year, ties Shirley Muldowney for Nitro wins and captures her first win of the 2025 season. And as we close out the New England Nationals, once again, like I said, if you want to keep up to date with everything that's going on, be sure to subscribe to the channel. It helps out a lot. You don't miss out on any of the updates. It's a free thing you get to do, and you get to keep up with all the news and all the action going on within the NHRA Mission Foods Drag Racing Series. Again, an incredible event top to bottom. We're going to be live in Bristol for the Thunder Valley Nationals thanks to our friends at Peak Performance. So if you want to stay up to date, follow along with us and them at Peak Squad. You'll have links all week long in Bristol, so you can go join their emailing list there. Looking at this, like I said, this is going to be incredible. Tony Stewart, far and away, the best car on the property each and every week. Super consistent, is running in the 360s, is cutting consistent lights close to that 050 mark, which is what I know Leah has been aiming for him to get. A 49 light in the final came up just short, but you can't really do much when Brittany Force has a 340 mile an hour run sitting in her back pocket and is able to pull that out like it's nothing. This has been a completely impressive weekend and a reawakening for that Monster Energy Chevrolet Top Fuel dragster. And this could be the turning point for her season if she's able to keep this momentum rolling. But as it stands right now, Tony Stewart, with how good that car is in the heat of the day, with how good that car is and how consistent it is able to run, with the sun down on that racetrack, with Neil Strasbaugh tuning that car, they are far and away the favorite championship contender in the top fuel category with how good that car is. Brittany Force is really the only person that is able to contend with the consistency of the pace that they have. There's going to be a question of if they can keep this ball rolling heading into Bristol and if they can keep this pace going. If they can hit a 340 mile an hour run in Bristol, then she's easily going to maneuver her way right around Tony Stewart to be the number one championship contender regardless of what the point standing says, because if she consistently can run these 340 mile an hour runs at every single national event, it's going to be lights out for everybody else. Speaking of lights out, I said it over and over again in this video, if Austin Prock heads to Bristol with this amount of intensity that we've seen from him in the past, that we saw at Brainerd of last year, it's going to be really hard for anybody to get around this guy. Jack Beckman in a backup chassis, the car that he ran last year. It's the car that he won with at St. Louis, but we know just how good the new chassis was compared to the old one because they didn't really have enough time to get him properly fitted in that car. It's going to be interesting to see just how far back they're going to be with the backup chassis. I would assume this car is the new car that they have is going to be ready by the time they get back out to Virginia and Norwalk. So this is going to be a little bit of a hit for them, but I don't really doubt that this is going to really hinder them too much. But with Austin Prock as good as he is, you really need to be at your best, and having a destroyed chassis sitting in the shop in Brownsburg, Indiana is not the way you want to be. J.R. Todd, Dickie Venables, the new tuning with John Oberhofer on that car. If they can keep the momentum rolling here, maybe they're the person that can go out there and can contend with the John Force Racing Chevrolet funny cars. In Pro Stock, Elite Motorsports, turning in the right direction is going to be a question on whether or not they're going to be able to hold this momentum and is able to get those 300ths of an advantage that KB Titan has. Because they're able to go out there and contend, But when you really go down to it with how close Greg Anderson and Dallas Glenn have been able to eke out these wins round by round in each national event final round, you need those hundredths of a second, because that is where they're able to find the gap to go out there and steal these wins from people. Speaking of hundredths of a second, Pro Stock Motorcycle is going to be back in Bristol for the Thunder Valley Nationals. It took off this weekend from Epping. We left Chicago with a lot of cool storylines. Steve Johnson is starting to turn the performance around. Ryan Naylor, an incredible qualifying weekend, came up short in race day. You saw the likes of Gino Scali and Chris Bostick having incredible runs. You saw Gage Herrera again dominating, has yet to be defeated in Chicago, has yet to be defeated in Bristol, so that's going to be exciting to watch. Richard Gadsden knocking on the door of his first ever national event win. There's still a question on whether or not he's going to be able to get it done. Could the tricky conditions in Bristol with the tunnel bumps and the tricky conditions of the transition bump at the finish line be enough for him to maybe steal a win? Chase Van Santen as well has been falling off the 8 ball as of late. Could this be the weekend that he turns it around? And then finally, Matt and Angie Smith, some incredible performance out of them with the new bikes that they have. They're really starting to turn a step in the right direction in the fight against the Vance & Hines bikes. It's a question of not, can they keep the consistency to go out there and run with Gage Herrera? Because again, with how good Gage Herrera can be and how easily he can find those hundreds of a second at the snap of a finger just off the starting line, you're going to need your best. And with how good Gage Herrera is, if you're at your 100%, Gage might find that 100.1 that he needs to get the job done. So it's going to be very, very exciting to see what the direction this is going to go. So if you want to stay up to date, subscribe to the channel today. Comment down below what you thought of the New England Nationals. Be sure to follow me on all social media pages down below. Mighty Mac out there on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And until the Thunder Valley Nationals in Bristol, Tennessee, brought to you by Peak Performance, this has been Mighty Mac. We'll see you next time.